Hello, crafty friends. Welcome to another episode of Angela Shows You. So I recently made a tree of life with cardstock, and I used my Cricut to make the tree, and it came out absolutely beautifully. Now I actually chose, this is actually a white glitter, so I chose to do white glitter as my background. You could use any color though. Blue would probably be really beautiful, and I actually have like a blue that's, it probably almost actually kind of looks like a sky a little bit. It's multicolors of blue. There are so many cardstock options out there. Now that one I had actually purchased in a pad, and it had multiple colors, like pretty much every color of the rainbow, and it had 2 or 3 of each color, and they were, you know, slightly different. Every page was slightly different, so it was actually really cool. So in order to make something like this, now I kind of already had prepared this to put it in the frame. So the frame that I have is a square 8x8 frame. So what you're going to want to do when you cut this with your Cricut is you will want to cut it. I cut it just, well, of course, this, you know, you're gonna set it so whatever size your frame is. I actually chose to cut everything just a little bit smaller than what my frame size was, because of course you want everything to fit in the frame, but you don't want it to be smaller. So I want to say I probably chose about somewhere between 7.5 and 7 3/4 to fit. So this one was actually 5. This one was 5 layers. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut each layer. You're going to weed out all the little intricate pieces in the middle. So the reason why I didn't do this as like a whole tutorial is because weeding out these intricate pieces, like this is a very time consuming project to make. So then what you're going to do is when you've got each of your pieces cut, I actually purchased these on Amazon, and these actually are very thin strips, and they are double-sided, and they're foam like riser pieces. So this section right here is 4 pieces. So one piece of it is actually quite small. You can see how small these are. And then this is the height of the piece. Now what I do is I take 1 or 2 strips. It kind of depends on how big. Like, you know, some of these pieces are kind of small. So the reason why I chose this one is because when I, you know, you kind of are going to pick a spot where you're going to put, and I was kind of liberal when I put these pieces on, because I wanted, you know, you want it to look 3-dimensional. So you want to add these on each layer to make each layer stand out just a little bit farther from the previous sheet, so that you end up, when you're looking at this, that you've got that 3D look. So depending on how fine your pieces are, they do sell these that come a little bit thicker, or if you have a little bit thicker of a piece, like these break off nice enough that you can use like 2 instead of just like the one thin piece. You could use 2 pieces. And then what I did was I tore off one side, because remember this is double-sided. So all you want to do is just, you're going to take one side off of your sticky piece, put it on the paper, get all, you know, all your pieces arranged. I actually cut each one of these probably 5 or 6 times. I made them, you know, small, because this is small and you don't want it to show. So I cut each piece as little, and I just kind of dotted them all over the place. And then you put, you know, lay it down you put your next piece on. You can do it either way. You can lay one down on top. You can start at the bottom and work your way up, or you can start at the top and work your way down. Whichever way, you know, you're more comfortable with. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong way to do it. So what I actually did was I started at the top and worked my way down. So I put the pieces on. These sticky pieces, I put the pieces on, and then I put my next piece on top and just work my way forward. All you're going to want to do is keep your sheets as you weed them, keep them organized whichever way it is that you're going to do, so that you don't get them in the wrong order as you are making each layer. So once you have all your pieces lined up and everything's layered together, so see, this is what I was talking about. Like, you can kind of see a little bit how this is multicolored. So I had a blue one, and I could have used the blue one in the back of this, but I opted for white. Now, you know, you can also get creative. I have seen some really, really beautiful multi-color pieces. I chose to do this in multiple shades of green, but you could throw in an orange in there, a red. You know, you could really do this up in a, you know, a rainbow of colors. You could do, you know, brown if you wanted to make your trunk brown. So, you know, get creative. You can find so many beautiful inspiration pieces like on Pinterest. So, you know, play around a little bit, look to see, you know, find an inspiration that you want, and go ahead and cut, weed, put these together. So then, you know, what you're going to do is I've actually found these frames. I want to say I got these at Michael's, and when I went in and got them, I think they were like buy two, get one or two free. So that did make the frames a reasonable price. Okay, so then what you're just going to pop your piece in. So because I've got the tape in there, because I didn't want it to move around too much, so I've taped it. So I just am going to, and the reason why I actually did that is because I'm debating still if I want to add the lights to this or not. I don't think that I'm going to, because I chose to attach everything onto the, you know, that piece that they give you in the frame already. And I don't know that lights are actually going to show through this piece. And that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind as well when you're choosing your cardstock and any backing, is if you're going to put the fairy lights in here, you want to probably not use the piece that's given, because it'll just make it very dim looking. So I don't think that I'm actually going to put the lights in here. However, so this, before I continue with the lights, this piece came in, and I think this, you know, if you were putting a regular photo in here and you wanted the, like, that matting, or if it didn't quite fit, they gave you this. So I just put this in the back of the frame. This also helps to keep the backing, you know, close up too. Now, so this, I actually cut this. So this was a complete square, and I cut the end of it. And the reason why you want to do that is so that if you put the lights in, you have a corner. So, you know, just be careful, because this has hooks on it, so if you wanted to hang it, so you just want to be mindful. So this is cut on the bottom corner. There we go. You know, the only thing about the little tabs on photo frames, and I find this on all the frames that I ever buy and put pictures in. So you can see, so if I wanted, and actually I probably didn't cut this quite enough, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to put the lights in here, but you would want to probably cut it just a little bit more so that you've got room for that string, because a lot of the fairy lights, they have a small like battery box, and that's where your on-off little slider is going to be. So you're just going to want to make sure that you cut your corner here so that you've got just enough room that your string comes out, and then you've got your fairy box. Now I've seen some people will like tape or hot glue you know, the little box, the slider light battery box onto the back. If you get one that you can change the batteries out on, be very careful if you choose to hot glue the battery box onto the back. You would want to make sure that you glued it so that you could take the box apart and change the batteries. Now, not all of them have the battery box. Some of them, that's it. So when it dies, it dies, it's done. Not all the fairy lights that I've seen have battery boxes that have changeable batteries in them, but some of them do. So just keep in mind when you're putting something like this together that you want to make sure that you cut your thing, especially if, you know, this would be especially important if you were using a string of lights, like if you were doing a Christmas one and you were doing a regular string of lights that plug in, you would want this to be on a bottom corner so that you could, you know, string it and plug it in. But most of the ones that I see, and a couple of the ones that I've done, I used the fairy lights and they had the little battery box. And so you could, you know, still probably leave it at the bottom so that if you didn't attach it, it's at the bottom, and then the battery box and the little slider on off switch would just sit like on the table or shelf right behind. If you made your slit at the top, it would dangle and it would pull, and then the lights would you know, they would run the risk of being distorted. Now, if you were adding lights, what I've seen people do is, you know, kind of do them like around the perimeter. You're going to want to either hot glue them or tape them. Use kind of a strong tape, you know, maybe even like a small piece of the black electrical tape, as long as that's not going to show through. If you're using all white, I would probably not recommend using a piece of black electrical tape, because then you would run the risk of having those dark lines showing in the background, and that would ruin the look of your image. So, you know, these are beautiful. They are, if you're looking to do these to sell them, just keep in mind that you price them appropriately, because they do take time. This took me a couple hours because just of all the weeding in between all the branches and the you know, the tree leaves. So this took me a couple hours to make all together, but I really do love the way it came out. Just keep in mind, like I said, depending on the size of the frame, how you arrange your image in design space. You know, if you were using a regular frame, you could do this, and I actually did it also, and I made the tree into an oval shape, and that was just as beautiful as the round one was. So something like this has unlimited options. You know, you could probably even do this square but I thought that doing it round in the square frame and just giving a little bit of showing on the corners, you know, just kind of gave it that background. Again, you could play with this a little bit more. You could do, you know, a color in the background down here, and you know, maybe you want it to look like a sky, so you would do blue is like the sky background for the tree. Many options. I would, you know, again, recommend take a look on Pinterest, get an inspiration idea, and then go on to Design Space. And I think I might have bought this file on Etsy, but take a look first in Design Space and just see, because there are a lot of really beautiful cardstock layer pieces in Design Space, and you can choose if you know, do you want like 3, you know, how many dimensions do you want it? Do you want 3, 5, you know, 7 or 8? So you can really pick how, you know, how 3D you want something like this to be. So there are a lot of options. They are a lot of fun to make. They make great gifts. I will probably be doing another episode, and I can go in a little bit more detail in the whole putting it together, if that's something that people are interested in. But this is probably something that I'll be doing a little bit more of for Christmas. So be on the lookout for another episode of a cardstock photo frame project that we can go into a little bit more tutorial. This really was more of kind of just the basic and how to put it together, but we can do more of a little bit in depth, and it will definitely be longer than this one is. But I hope that this is something that piques your interest, and I hope that if you make one, you'll leave a comment and let me know how it goes, what image you decided to do, and you know, what you thought of your finished project. So thank you very much. I hope that you'll give this a thumbs up, and happy crafting.